This is The Resilient Life, where we believe that every human will struggle in this life. Our challenge is to struggle well. I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war, my mom to cancer, and I'm the daughter of a retired Marine. I'm also a wife, mom, author, and president of one of the nation's leading veteran service organizations. Join me and some incredible guests as we explore the value of struggling well through life's inevitable challenges. Welcome to another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. I am really excited about today's episode, a special episode that with special guests that I wanted to talk to leading up to Memorial Day. Today, I have the privilege and honor of speaking with Marcus and Melanie Luttrell, probably best known to the general public as the name behind the lone survivor. Marcus Luttrell is a retired Navy SEAL and Navy Cross recipient. A Texas native, Marcus spent 8 years in the United States Navy, where he deployed multiple times to Iraq and Afghanistan. In his second deployment, the first to Afghanistan, Marcus took place in Operation Red Wings, where he was the lone survivor of his 4-man SEAL team after being ambushed by Taliban forces. Despite a number of critical injuries from that encounter, Marcus returned to active duty and deployed again in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was subsequently medically discharged in 2007 and was awarded the Navy Cross by President George W. Bush. Since then, Marcus has married his lovely wife, Melanie, and both of them have maintained an active role in veterans issues. Marcus is the founder of the Lone Survivor Foundation, which focuses on providing veterans and their families a path to healing following service. And both Marcus and Melanie also lead Team Never Quit, an initiative focused on sharing the stories of the fallen to inspire others to never quit. Melanie and Marcus, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. And this one's special because I wanted to talk to you guys here today about Memorial Day. And I think as we're approaching Memorial Day, one of the things that I often get asked is, how can we honor the fallen? What can we do? And you know, for many years, I've thought about how to answer that question. And for me, I'm always very quick to say, listen, I have no problem with you having a barbecue. I have no problem with you hanging out with your family and friends, but make sure at some point over the weekend that you take time to remember why you're able to do these things and remember these men and women who have given their lives in service to this country. And you know, I could think of no better couple to sit down and talk with leading into this special weekend than both of you. Melanie, an incredible military spouse, and Marcus, you know, someone that made it back, but lost a lot of his friends in the process while serving overseas. So welcome to the Resilient Life podcast, and looking forward to diving in with everything.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Fun.
So let's start. Marcus, I'd love to start with you. As you know, for many of us, Memorial Day holds special significance, including myself as a Gold Star sister. But I'd love to just start with the obvious. What does Memorial Day mean to you? And I'm sure it carries specific memories of, you know, your fallen comrades, but is there something specific about that day that you choose to do, you choose to memorialize, and how do you feel about Memorial Day in general? Just kind of start there.
That's a great question. And you and I were discussing this a little earlier. It seems like over time that answer can change for us because how we go about our daily life, and the more we get from it, the more you appreciate the ones that did make it back. Does that make sense? I said that right. But so with me, I've lost a lot of my brothers. You're right. That's I have. So Memorial Day is I personally memorialize them on this day. I remember something that they did when we did it together, or what they truly love to do, and I have to do it that day. I throw myself a party with them all day, and it's the funniest thing because there's stuff I remember about them that we used to like to do that I would watch them do, and I just kind of make sure that I throw a shot up. It's like bringing their spirit down, and you carry it with them wherever you go. And for a lot of people, they're not familiar with anybody in our family who's fallen. Then it's a lot of times people don't know what to do. But if you want to memorialize something on Memorial Day of our fallen, it's got to be in a loving capacity, right? Something that you love to do and go do that on that day because these people provided that cover, right? We're all out there, and the ones that got left back there, it's like they're still holding the line. So whatever it is that you do that truly brings you joy in living here at their cost, do it. Mm-hmm. And it's when you have kids and then as life progresses and as we grow up, it's funny. But I heard you talking about the cemeteries. So I call it the Book of the Dead. And Melanie got this huge old wooden framed album. Inside it are grave rubs from all of my brothers from their headstones.
Wow.
Right. So when you were talking about that thing you guys were setting up, I don't know if we're jumping ahead or something.
No, that's okay. Keep going. Keep going.
You know what I mean? I was like, so we like to do these scavenger hunt things. What are those geocache deals?
Geocache.
Yeah. Where you can actually get on, we've traced our lineage back. So we're going to do a road trip and trace our family back to the country and hit the cemeteries and grave rub all of my uncles and aunts and everybody. But you could literally go out and rub and find a grave rubbing of somebody in that family and have it decorated up or just
of a veteran,
right? Mm-hmm. And then let somebody know, like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but we found his headstone and his tombstone. You can leave it there for them to find it. If someone takes care of it, they can get them that stuff, right? I probably should be saying that because people don't like leaving anything that gets left at the headstone. They got to clean it up, right? A lot of times they don't know what to do with it. There's so much magnificent stuff there, but just that little simple thing is just, and seeing how far back you can trace the line is the coolest part.
No, so I think
go ahead, Melanie.
Sorry, for us, what we do on Memorial Day, we always have a bunch of people over, and we do the barbecue and all that kind of stuff because it's America, and that's how we remember everybody. And it's a lot of people see it as a day off of work, but what we really try to do is, now that we have kids, we teach our kids about the fallen. Very important to us that they understand the sacrifice, especially on Memorial Day and what that means. And thankfully, the whole country basically has gotten behind a lot of his fallen brothers. So like there's the Murph workout that a lot of the CrossFit gyms do. In Houston, we have the Danny Dietz Memorial Rodeo and roping, and we're very involved with that. So we attend all of these things on Memorial Day, but we also have our family and our friends together, and we talk about the guys. And that's something that is important. And even if you don't have somebody, because before I met Marcus, I didn't have anyone in my family that had served. I didn't know anybody, no one in my immediate family. But I was always taught to honor the fallen. I would look up a story or just talk about it. And I think that's important for people to do is, like Marcus is saying, do grave rubs. If you don't know anybody, if you don't have anybody in your immediate family, go to a cemetery and just walk around. It says on the headstone if they were in the military or not. And, just sit down and say a prayer for them or, something like that. There's so many different things that you can do on Memorial Day to honor those that have given their sacrifice for us.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you about it. I'm sorry.
No, I always say, for me, it's so easy I think the three of us understand, and have a deeper meaning for what Memorial Day is. And it's no fault of anybody else's. It just is what it is, right? It's where we ended up in our lives. But for those people that don't have that connection to the military, or more specifically, a connection to a fallen hero, I always say could not be easier in today's day and time to find the story of a fallen hero and learn that story and pass it on. As you're sitting there drinking your beer and eating your burger with your friends, turning and saying, hey, have you ever heard of Michael Murphy? Let me tell you about him. How simple is that? And how American is that we can sit there enjoying our freedoms and talk about these men and women and, continue their legacy, make sure that their name does not die, make sure their name is being told, Yeah.
I think another reason why we do that, especially here in America, and look at Memorial Day, if your brother and I are sitting around, And I'd be like, hey, if I don't make it, if you don't make it, check it out, sis. I'm going to give you a day to go do something. Because we don't know everybody's birthday. It's like one day to celebrate their birthday for everybody, right? It's like that one day. And the one thing you do to celebrate that everyone gets along is breaking bread, right? It's sitting down and being festive, being happy. We can all agree on that. I mean, you boil it down to this, that's how we get through life.
Yep.
No one likes to argue at the table. Well, you're not supposed to if the food's good because you're stuffing your face, right? And you're supposed to be smiling. So with all the boys that, with like everybody in the family that fell, man, if they could give everybody in America a day off, that's what we do that, right? Just in case for the other boys, just, hey, on this day, man, just chill, just relax, for us taking this heavy and do what you love to do with family and people, and then celebrate all of that. Because the uniform's still alive. It's a forever uniform, right? It can't, it gets passed around.
Yeah.
So does the spirit. Right? Whatever, like your brother and everybody that comes ahead, man, we just keep going. And that's how that way you don't ever forget. Because you'll always have that day and what they shared with their families, and that what we get to share with ours now.
And that's the whole purpose, is to never forget the fallen. I mean, that is the whole, that's what your mission is. It's what our mission is to educate people on their names, on who they are, and constantly honor them. And so Memorial Day is that day that it's like everyone, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be someone from World War II. Just honor them, or honor all of them, but find out and really research at least one person and honor them by just looking up their story.
Walk up to them old timers and go, hey, tell me a story. I know you like to talk. Tell me something.
Yeah, well, and one of the things I think about is, again, I think Memorial Day is a great day and I love how you frame it, because, listen, I'm going to be honest, I've been around different Gold Star families that are very specific in, know the meaning of Memorial Day. It's to honor the fallen and nothing else. And if you throw up a picture at a barbecue, it's almost offensive. And, for me, I take the other side of that. I'm like, I love the idea that, like you said, do things they love doing and
right.
honor them in that way. And so I'm more in that camp with you, but I also think for me, Memorial Day is, I was quoted a few years ago, and it keeps popping up everywhere, because I had said on an interview, I think on Fox News, I said, every day's Memorial Day to me. I mean, every day I'm remembering my brother. I'm remembering my brother's friends who didn't make it back. Like that's Memorial Day, right? And so like one day doesn't signify their losses for me, but that's because I'm personally connected to that. And
right.
so, I think Memorial Day for me becomes an education point, a point where I can show others, okay, like there's 365 days out of the year that I'm going to remember the fallen, because that's how close I am to it. But for you, like taking that one day, this is how I'm going to educate you to do that, and have you understand those sacrifices, because I think more than anything, it's about people understanding those sacrifices and understanding, as disconnected as you may be from the military community, you need to understand the sacrifices that are made on your behalf. You may not realize that. You may have no connection, but they're made on your behalf. And so, Marcus, I'd love to know, with this idea, I can't help but think that, like me, 365 days out of the year, you're remembering and your fallen brothers, those that didn't make it back. And do you feel a responsibility to live a life worthy of their sacrifice? Does that weigh on you, or is that something you've learned to just deal with?
That is a great question. That's a great question.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, you know what? In the beginning, it was, because I have just as many of my friends that have fallen as about as many days in the year. So I try to celebrate one of them a day, and take one of them outside with me. And if I run into a lot of people or people out there and I hear their name, Well, then I'll look over to see if they carry mannerisms or something, there's something I might notice. And that's how I remember them. And if I see somebody doing something and it reminds me, boom, I got them right there. That's how I catch them. And so it's in the beginning, it was tough. I made 19 promises right off the bat. Anytime I walked in anywhere, I had to carry myself a certain way just because I know I was going to run into somebody that knew that. So I reversed it. Memorial Day is the one day I take off. I mean, I just kind of. I hope that's not bad. I'm not selfish. I'm not trying to be selfish. Because I'm in it every day, and it's the funniest thing because we train together, we live together, and our mannerisms to a point to where now it's the way I just am. It's the way I am. Plain simple. Some people will run into you. I was telling this the other day, and they'll tell you that I'm the nicest guy you ever met, and I do everything I can for you, and then you'll meet somebody and tell you I'm the worst thing down here, and I do many things. Both of those are true, right? Just people, no one gets the same side of me. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, as you go through this, I picked the best parts of every one of the guys that meant something to me and changed that. Now when I go out, I can't not try to hit somebody with some positivity because something in their head triggered me. If I see her driving down the road, it'll remind me now because we're in it all the time. So it becomes a part of our memory and a part of our code.
Yeah.
To where, it's like that. So, and it's different for everybody. It has to be that way because not everybody steps up and drops into this. But when you celebrate it the way we do, and every clan's different, right? People celebrate different ways. I mean, from sports to everything, we're our own thing.
Yep.
I mean, we just are. We're just our own thing, right? Our own kind of fraternity inside the family. And look at any other TV show you watch. When you see something abstract, people don't know what to make of it. They're automatically like, man, that's crazy. I wouldn't even like, well, you ain't part of this. We're trying to open it up to you and let you know why we do these things because we celebrate like this because of how bad it is on the other side. When we lose them, that's not a party, right? That's something completely different. And they don't get that part. So they get to see, we're trying to show them the least amount of that part on that day, right? You got to be celebrate that part. Celebrate the life that they granted. That's the whole misconception, I think. And you can always be down about something, or you can find something to be blessed and positive about it. And I've had to do that because of how much death I run around with.
Yeah.
One of the things that he does that I think is really neat is every once in a while, he's never erased the phone numbers of any of his friends that have passed. And every once in a while, he'll just send a message to that number. Someone else has it now, and then he'll tell them, you don't know, like, this is whose phone you had, and carry yourself, he'll just send like a little message, and it's like, could you imagine getting that?
No, I honestly could not. That's
but funny. He does every once in a while. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what the person on the other end is thinking. But
there's somebody has my father's phone number, and every now and again on Father's Day, I'll be like, hope you're having a great day. If it was bad, I hope it gets better. And in the beginning, they were like, who is this? If it's now, they'll be like, I hope your day's great too. They'll hit you back. Isn't it funny?
But it shows up as dad.
And I was just like, hey, great day, because it shows up on my phone. And I'll just send it out. I don't know. It's no way I think about them. And I don't ever forget them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think you brought up something really interesting.
I might be a little weird to tell the American people. I keep that off there.
No, I, you know what? I still have my mom's number in my favorites. But hers just goes, the number never got transferred because I've called it a couple times and it just goes, this number.
Okay, so I haven't done that. I haven't ponied up to do the actual, hey, what's happening?
Yeah. You brought up something that I thought was really interesting. So when you were, kind of talking about the military and, how you honor what you do every day, like you brought up like this ritual, like people don't fully understand. And it was something I kind of wanted to dive in with you, Melanie, because I often think, just knowing you met Marcus after his military service, I was born into a military family. My dad's a retired Marine Corps colonel. So even before Travis serving in the Marine Corps, like that was a life I lived. You know, I was born in Camp Lejeune. I moved all my dad's friends were Marines. I knew that world. I knew the military world. But I often find it interesting when somebody kind of comes into this world. I mean, it had to be a bit of a culture shock for you, not just marrying into somebody who served, but marrying, you know, again, you're marrying Marcus Luttrell, right? You're marrying the lone survivor. Like that has to be a bit of like, whoa. And how did you process that? And how did you deal? Because I think a lot of that had to be challenging for you.
Yeah. Even though I didn't have anyone in my immediate family, my dad and my whole family, my grandparents, they're very patriotic. I mean, very patriotic. We always, my dad raised me by himself. And so the first movie that I ever saw in the movie theater was Platoon. And I was probably like 4 or 5. I should not have been going to that movie, but it's just something like we always honored the military. Every time, if my dad saw somebody in uniform, he would go up and shake their hand and buy their lunch or whatever. And so I always used that lifestyle, like from the civilian side, to honor the military. But yeah, and speaking of my dad, he is how I met Marcus. He had read the book. I knew nothing about Marcus. I knew nothing about the story or anything. And a mutual friend of Marcus's and mine had introduced my dad to Marcus. And my dad could not stop talking about it. He's like, there's this retired Navy SEAL, blah, blah, blah. He's gone through so much. And I kept thinking he was an old man because I didn't understand that you could retire at a young age. I just didn't get that.
I was Vietnam.
I thought he was like a Vietnam.
This is before Facebook and all that.
Yeah, this is like months of my dad just like always talking about him. And in my head, I'm just picturing this old man. And anyway, long story short, but so when I met him, I knew that there was a book. My dad said he had read the book. I had not read the book. It was before the movie. And we ended up talking on the phone, and he would say things as if I should know them, like mention things. And so I was traveling, and I stopped in a bookstore. I think I was in Telluride. Stopped in the little local bookstore, and I was like, "Do you have a book called Lone Survivor?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's one of our best sellers or whatever." And I grab it and I read it like basically just did a really quick skim read. And I was like, holy cow, he has gone through a lot, but it still didn't really set in. Yeah. You know, I don't know why. It was just, I think I was caught up in the moment of like, I had a crush on him already. Right. Not for that, but just like his personality over the phone. And then, yeah, I just kind of got thrown into the world of military everything. And I probably didn't do a great job in the beginning.
We met on a blind date.
So I
actually remember me that night. And I pulled her straight into our world. I mean, she went from skimming the surface of what that title doesn't mean. That's just the title. Like everything that backfills everything that we are, because we're connected in the Marine Corps. Because I'm a bastard. You know, I got sent to every one of y'all to get trained up, man. And I have a story with one of y'all. And all my buddies, my brothers, we're all brothers and sisters. I mean, there was so much, because I hit them straight with the death.
I mean, I met
right at the beginning. And then even after we had extortion, which was 33 of our guys. And one of our best friends with everyone, you know. So
yeah, and I had already met guys and hung out with them that died on extortion. Like I had already become friends with some of those guys. So and that happened a year after we got married. So it was just really crazy. Within our first real date was the very first gala, like the opening fundraiser for Lone Survivor Foundation to start. And everyone was there. I mean, families of the fallen, and people are introducing themselves, but I'm not understanding who they were. Even though I did a quick skim of the book,
Right.
I didn't know like parents' names and widows' names in my head. Like I had just met him 2 weeks before. So
And he brought you to that event? I mean, my God.
He brought me to that event and introduced me as his girlfriend. And I'm like, I
might have been the first time that I've ever had them.
I was like, what? And I mean, I'm meeting everyone from Glenn Beck to Peterburg and all the families of the fallen, the helicopter crew that rescued him. I mean, I'm meeting everyone that night. It was such an overwhelming experience. That's why I say I didn't do a good job, because I feel like I should have done some homework before that night. I didn't realize who all was going to be there, because I definitely would have sat down and spent more time with them. But
just too, I think it's kind of, I mean, it's the idea that you kind of knew that you learn Marcus's backstory, and then you start dating him, you marry him, and then you experience the loss with extortion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, it's not like, oh, that was all in the past. This is everything he went through. I don't know that part of the world to have that loss once you're together and you're married. I mean,
and not just extortion. There were other guys that we got to be close with, and they're just dying left and right. And it was very overwhelming. At that time, before I met Marcus, the only funerals I had been to was my great grandmother. Everyone lives really long in my life, and my stepmom that died tragically at a young age. So at that time, I had been to 2 funerals in my whole life. And I was 31, I think, when we got married. And since then, I've been to over 30 funerals. So it's so crazy.
The book, so she said she didn't know much about the story. Well, that was all right. Because right when that book came out, then there was the movies and all that. I mean, I'm trying to raise a family.
Yeah. Well, in the movie, it started filming. We had a 1-year-old at home, and Addie was 2 weeks old.
Oh my God.
And so it was just
really.
He was constantly traveling for speeches.
On top of all the military stuff, because then she's automatically. But the learning curve in our families, it's fast, right? When you get pulled in, hey, you're in. We're going.
Yeah. So it was very overwhelming for me, and that's why I didn't do such a great job in the very beginning. But then I really did grow very strong, genuine relationships with families of the fallen, that like from Red Wing. I'm very close with at least one person from every family. And
widows come out, they do something every year.
We love each other. I mean, I love them like
sisters. I see the work that you do with widows just through your social media and having them out there, and it's amazing. And I
truly do love them like sisters. Over the last 11 years now, we have grown to be very close. And
matter of fact, I still go hang out with the guys, and then she hangs out with the widow.
Yeah.
We still come around and make sure that we remember that.
Yeah, but it's not just because they're widows. Like I truly love them, and I want them to be sisters for life. Even though I wasn't in the sisterhood, we have developed a relationship since then, and that's really important to me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I was putting this, actually, it was when I was first on the Team Never Quit podcast with you guys, and I was actually talking with a friend, and they said, "Oh, well, have you read Lone Survivor?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And they're like, "Have you seen the movie?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And that's not, my husband's read both of your books. He's watched the movie. Everybody around me has, seen it all. For me, I can't, that's not something I would be able to watch. Like, I know my limitations, and I know that anything that gets into heavy combat for me is still, and I hate to use the word trigger because I'm not that person, but it's a bit of a trigger. Like, it gets me in a bad place. So, but one of the things I did watch was I watched a lot of your interviews Marcus, around the time that Lone Survivor was coming out, because I wanted to kind of gain the perspective of somebody that was sharing their story and after Travis was killed, and then Brendan, his best friend, who was killed in Afghanistan, when they were buried next to each other in Arlington, it became this big deal. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted to talk to us, to hear the story. And I wanted to understand, because I had very personal opinions about what Travis was doing over there. And Travis had really strong opinions about what he was doing over there. And I wanted to make sure I was articulating them the right way, but also staying true to who I was. And I was watching and rewatched your interview with Jake Tapper the other day. And I love it. You know why I love it? I love it because I've been in situations where I've been, in front of a reporter or an anchor, and they're asking me something, and it's rubbing me the wrong way, the way what they're saying, what they're implying. And I give a curt response that I don't really challenge them, but I'm like, okay, and I kind of try to move on to the next thing. And rewatching that interview with Jake Tapper, I was like, I wish I would have said what I really thought. And I love that you just put it out there. And we'll link that in the YouTube, but I'm talking specifically about an interview with Mark Wahlberg and Marcus, and Jake Tapper's interviewing him about Lone Survivor, about the movie coming out. And he makes a comment about he uses the word senseless, and he says senseless. Well, he first says hopelessness, that you guys, there was hopelessness. And you said, no one was hopeless. No one was hopeless. No one was hopeless until they were dead. Like nobody was hopeless. And so he pulls that word back, but he doubles down on the word senseless loss of life. And you just went for it. And you said, no. We were in the military. We were serving our country. We were following military order. What was senseless about that? And I remember right before Travis's funeral, I went to get my hair cut. And I was numb at the time, but I knew I needed to get my hair done. And I had my hair back in the bowl, and the woman was washing my hair. And she said something like, "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I'm so sorry about your brother." She knew. And she said, "What a shame that these young boys are all dying in vain." And I got up, like hair soaking wet. And I sat up and I walked out, and I was just like, we're done here. But I think about that as we approach, weekends like Memorial Day weekend, right? As we're approaching weekends like this idea that there is lives being lost in vain or senseless losses. And it just couldn't be further from what my family believes. It couldn't be further from what my brother believed he was fighting for. And so I try to stand true to those convictions without being overly aggressive. But I want to thank you because I have no doubt that if you were asked that question again today, you'd have the same response. I know that was a long time ago, but I want to thank you for, in that moment, you've got Mark Wahlberg sitting next to you. You're on like primetime TV. You could have very easily glossed by it, right? And you could have not made it a thing. And you did. And I appreciate that you did that.
Thank you. I think that gets brought up every now and again. You can be sure.
It's funny because Marcus is very forgiving. I don't
I'm
have
buddies
that.
with him now. I don't hold grudges.
I like Jake Tapper too. I like Jake. Jake, if you listen, no offense to you. It was a long time ago.
No, it's really funny because I hold grudges. I get when someone pisses me off like that lady that was washing your hair, I would want to burn her salon down. Like that makes me so mad. And the rage will build for a long time. So no, it makes me so mad. And when that happened, I was standing at the doorway and I'm like, just rage built inside me when he said that. And I knew Marcus was going to answer, an honest, direct.
There's actually a tale that happens when I shit. You can see it.
Yeah. I mean, you could see him shift in his chair. Like he went from like, because that was also a press junket. So there was an interview every 15 minutes in the same room. And they're all asking the exact same questions. And so Marcus is kind of like bored or whatever, sitting there. He's been there for hours. And so he's just kind of out of it. And then Jake asks that, and you can see him shift in his chair like, what the F did he just say?
Well, the funny thing about it is, and my husband pointed it out yesterday because we watched it again, and my husband goes, watch Mark Wahlberg. Because when he says it and you shift, Mark Wahlberg does one of these. He like sits back like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we laugh about because Marcus has forgiven him. Jake Tapper came back that next day, I think, and he apologized to Marcus and asked for forgiveness and said, like, I'm looking back, I shouldn't have said that. I'm really sorry that it came across that way. I really do respect you and your fallen brothers. And that interview just went the wrong way. And he apologized.
Yeah. And now, it's kind of misunderstanding too. I don't think, I don't even think the woman who was washing my hair, she wasn't trying to hurt me.
Right.
She thought I was going to be like, I know, I can't believe it. They're all dying in vain. Like she didn't get it, you know?
But it shows a lot, like, for you and for Marcus, like, to forgive that situation. And then there's people like me that's like, what's her name? Okay, I will remember that for the rest of my life. That is not okay. Because there are two totally different types of people out there. And that interview pissed me off.
As you get older, you can see it when someone says that. Like, I don't have the luxury, I don't have the luxury anymore of being able to hold on to those kind of things. To say that like that. I don't have that because we live in a different world. So you can understand when people, when they don't know what to say sometimes, so they kind of, and then when you check them on it, then you go to the word bank, right? And usually the next one with that elicits probably the same response. Because I went from answering the questions routinely to he had my full attention. Once you have my full attention, we can do with it, right? So
that is a fun interview to watch.
I pick on each other about it all the time.
Well, another interview that went very similar to that, and it was before, it's Marcus's very first interview, the Matt Lauer interview, and he didn't ask for Marcus's forgiveness, so still on my list.
Well, I think I brought it up not to slam Jake Tapper or anything. I like Jake.
No, hey, don't apologize. Girl, come on, man. Don't start like that.
Yeah, no, but I brought it up because I thought it was important, when you're talking about Memorial Day and you're talking about, like, there are very well-meaning individuals that, and Jake even said something to the effect, well, for someone like me, who didn't serve, and Mark Wahlberg kind of does, like, well, yeah, I mean, like, we don't fully get it. And I'm like, okay, I can live with that. Like, you don't fully get it. So don't assume that you do. Right. And so I think there's this, again, sometimes this misconception about what it means to serve, how these men and women feel. Like, my dad will constantly talk about the fact that Travis was calling home from a satellite phone in Iraq and just saying, Dad, the average American has no idea what is happening over here. The heroic things that are happening over here, like, you can't even comprehend, and I can't even articulate. And I think that's, again, another important thing for Americans to understand that you're not going to understand everything. Right.
Right.
And so for that reason, it's just important to honor these men and women for what they do, for raising their right hand, whether they're in for 1 year or 20 years, they all made that choice to step up and serve their country. And it's an important distinction, and it's something that it's important that separates, certain people from others.
Which is why I think it's important for these movies to exist. I mean, because we wouldn't understand the heroism of our World War II vets if it weren't for shows like Band of Brothers, You know, like we have to, the only way to get to the general public, the civilian population that doesn't know anyone in their immediate family, they don't have a friend that is serving, is through entertainment. And yes, some people might think of it as entertainment, but it's not. It's education.
Totally. I mean, my husband rewatches Band of Brothers every year. I mean,
that's mandatory.
Yeah,
exactly. But do you think that, you know, my dad wrote a book, Brothers Forever. It's about Travis and Brendan and their story. But really, greater than that, the book is about Travis and Brendan representing this generation of men and women, right? That have given their lives in service to this country. And I think it's one of the most powerful stories out there because it follows these two young men who ended up, you know, as midshipmen at the Naval Academy, and one went into the Marine Corps, the other became a Navy SEAL, and then 3 years later, they're lying next to each other at Arlington National Cemetery, you know, and what happens in between and what were the choices that they made. But I often wonder, and, you know, my dad's has talked to people and is still in talks with people around the book becoming something more than that. But do you think that the idea of these stories has waned from the public because what's happening overseas is dying down? Like, I mean, in the height of Lone Survivor, we were in it was a heavy time during the Iraq War, right? Do you feel like some of that sentiment is going away? And how do we bring that back?
Well, we're growing up now. There's a different generation on the ground.
Yeah.
The millennials are down here. They're completely different. We're 20 years past all that. And remember, back in the day, everyone had to serve. The reason you appreciate your country is because you had to go in. Right. So we can go back to that, or we'll make movies to where you learn to appreciate it that way. Because the kids, they watch stuff on TV and they try to emulate that. If you create an environment around the military, showing both good and the bad side, I've got it because this life, right? Life in the military is just average life.
Sure.
I mean, stuff we got when they send us over to do the fighting. We have everything else they have out here in the real world. We just dress up in the morning, check in, so the old man will see you're alive, right? That kind of thing. We all have our responsibilities. So I think that our country's done a great job at integrating first of all, the different classes of people, like the theater, the drama, the Hollywood, the stars. Like they create the environment, they recreate the environment we create. And if they do it good enough, then the younger generation will see that because, I mean, it's a pass up and a pass down, really. I mean, you preach hate all the time and all the movies are on there, the kids will turn into that. They just will.
I agree with you more.
In the world they live in, everything. Mel and I were joking about this the other day. I opened up the door first thing in the morning. There was bags from the store sitting outside. I was like, "Look,
I love delivery service."
I was like, "Man, this sounds made up. Like you can hold up a phone, touch a picture on it, and it'll show up at the door." I mean, back in the 1900s when we were kids, that sounds made up. And it's just as the gaps, the generational gaps. We've kind of grown up. We have kids now, and we want to keep them away from everything that we had to go through. Our 20 years is terrible. Whether you had we had a great time in it, but it was still war, 2 of them. And all our friends are dying. Ain't nobody living in one spot. We're just now getting our head above water. We're just getting started. Like you're just starting this. We're just getting started in this. The first part of our lives had to be tough. I mean, like real tough. So now, because of what we got coming up, who do you think can handle that? Only us. We're hybrids, man. We're just from everybody else.
I don't think that the American people are losing any interest. I think if anything, it keeps momentum going when there are more movies released, like Unbroken. Like that came out, 4 years ago or so, about World War II. And that was a huge hit. Like people still, it doesn't matter which war it was, they want to know about our heroes.
Right.
Even though it's a terrible situation, how that person died, it's an uplifting, it fills you with hope and patriotism and love for your country to watch those kind of movies.
Yeah.
And
that's the end of it.
And so I think for even 20 years from now, there will be movies still made about the Iraq and Afghanistan war, just like how we are still making movies about World War II. Yeah, I really don't think that that's going to die down. And it's crazy because Marcus and I went to Coronado. We took the kids in September. The kids had never been to the base, like the Buds compound and all that. So we just hopped in a van and did a road trip from Texas to Coronado. And we were teaching the kids, like, okay, this is what Daddy had to do. And they're seeing these young Bud students, you know, running with boats on top of their heads or whatever. Like, Daddy did this. And they're like, what? Daddy can't do that. Like, they can't even imagine it. And while we were there, those young kids that were Bud students, they're going up to Marcus like, I'm in because of your book or because of Chris Kyle or, you know, whatever. It's so crazy to see how there is a new generation going in because of their generation stories.
Yeah.
When we were kids, the selling point for my generation was how hard it was. No one could do it. We don't like you at all. I don't care what you don't know if you look, but if you want to come in here and be a part of this, you got to go through that. All right, sign me up. Let's do this. Now It's like, you don't have to, we'll make it as easy as possible. No one wants to do that. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah, I mean, listen, I remember growing up the Marines when I was little and people would say, oh, what's your dad doing? I'm like, he's a Marine. And, you know, not always did people understand what Marine Corps was even when growing up. And I was, oh, my dad's one of the few, the proud, you know, like I knew the slogan. I was like, you know, he's the few, the proud. That's my dad, you know? So
every time I hear you, I mean, this just for your dad too. Every time I hear someone say my father is retired Lieutenant Colonel Marine, I always kind of perk up. I know what that means. Like I know what he looks like, how he walks and dresses, and the creases in his pants. And I mean, I ran into one of the Marine the other day. He was 103. His creases were so sharp down his uniform, I could have shaved with him. I mean, them guys are serious about that. And it's funny because that's respect. I'm like, I'm not a Marine. I'll never even claim. I mean, I'm not. But when I see one, I know when I'm looking at it.
Oh yeah,
immediately.
My dad spent a few months down in Florida this winter, so when he came back, he wasn't looking like the retired Marine Corps colonel. But then he went and got a haircut, and I'm like, oh, there he is. He's back. So. Well, listen, I want to close everything out. You know, we didn't talk too much about this word, but the podcast is called the Resilient Life Podcast. And it's all about, for me, I want to be talking to guests that live lives of resilience. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You've had to be resilient over your life, Marcus. You've had a lot of things put in front of you. Melanie entering in as a spouse, and then, you know, dealing with some of the things that you've dealt with. Both of you are clearly living a resilient life. But I'd love to just hear from both of you what you think it means to live a life of resilience. How do you define resilience in your own life? We'll start with you, Melanie.
To me, being resilient is just never quitting. Like, it's just keep going, moving on, and always trying to be better. Like I was talking about earlier, my biggest flaw is not being able to forgive. It's something I pray about every day. Like, please, Lord, give me forgiveness, because I know that the only way to move forward is to forgive. And I think that's a big part of being resilient, is to just move on and keep going. And yeah, that's what resilient is to me. It's just being better every day.
I love it.
The hardest job in the world is military stuff. Because not only, I mean, I deal with everything I've ever had to deal with on purpose. I go in it like that. So every weight that I get hit with falls on her when I get home, all the time. So she has to deal with not only what she has to do, but what because I can't vent to anybody else. So, and so I can even just walk around not saying a word and it stresses this place out. I mean, and not being used to that, growing up in it, you understand why that exists. I don't know, when she's like, you want to decide to be a military spouse? Like, oh, no, why would anybody want to do that?
That's why I'm not a military spouse. I did not want to be one.
Yeah. Right? So when she had no idea what she was, I had no idea what I was really getting her into, because I had never had to look at it that way. I thought all the pressure I was taking, I'm designed for it. because it was a building block. I didn't take it all at once. I mean, it kind of came, and then the whole thing I shifted over and pulled her right into it. We were talking about this today. I was dealing with something, and she's just walking through the house and walking through my energy. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of sitting there focused on something else. You can feel that. But over time, we just trained, and resilience is going back in. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get your butt whipped. That's supposed to happen. Like, you get the shark fin. Like, every day we go down, we learn something. We wake up next morning, whatever we in the past, we squash that. Mm-hmm. We don't even bring it because it's gone, right? We have one day together, and we try to make the best of it we can about what we're in. And man, once we learned how to communicate with each other, because a lot of times when we're sitting there talking, and I would kind of, the conversation would get intense, but ultimately what's happening is like she was trying to say the same thing I was. She was just saying it differently, and I didn't know that. I couldn't figure that out. So I just, I had to listen. I just started listening instead of sitting there, because there's a difference between sitting there waiting to talk and sitting and waiting and just listening, right? And I started listening, and the more I heard, I was like, wait a minute. And I asked questions, because our relationship's like the Weather Channel. It's like constant updates, man. I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm in trouble. Did I do anything wrong? She's like, no, you're good. I'm like, all right, let's go.
What does it mean to live a resilient life?
To understand that you only have one. You got one day down here, right? Life keeps going. Things die, and you can step out of it and you step back in it. Resilience is like getting back in that line. You can rest a little bit and then get back into it. And just matter, every day is supposed to be designed for a certain reason to teach you something about it. If every day was perfect, you wouldn't have any idea what perfection was, because you don't have anything to measure it off of. All right? We don't have bad days, we just have hard ones. Your resistance and your resilience is your ability to step back into the game every morning and take it any way you can. Take it as it comes on. Don't try and carry your day. Let the day carry you. The day's too heavy. It's like fish in the water. They get pushed. Birds in the air, they get carried. Humans are supposed to get carried through the day, and just kind of think about it like that, man. And every day get up and thank the good Lord you get to see another one, man, and just take advantage of it.
I feel like you just dropped like 10 quotes that are going to, I mean, what does living a resilient life mean? It means you only get one. I mean, yeah. Don't carry the day, let the day carry you. I love it. Wow, this was awesome. I think the world of both of you. I love how, and it would be really easy for you guys to just live on your ranch in Texas, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your family, and not do much beyond that. But you both make it a point to stay connected to this community, to honor those sacrifices every day. And people see that. They see that how much you care about fallen service members, how much you care about keeping their legacies alive, not just the ones that you served with, but all of them. And, everything you continue to do for the military community, as a sister of a fallen Marine, it means the world. So, continue doing what you're doing, continue spreading that message. And I appreciate so much what you guys represent within this community and how you continue to hold yourselves. And really love this conversation today, and looking forward to, I'm going to think about that on Memorial Day this year. I will be in Arlington because we're running down a project there. But what I do at Arlington when I'm there, Marcus, is I always have I always have a bottle of Patron in my backpack, and we do a couple shots to the guys.
Oh yeah,
there.
of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
matter of fact, I don't think you're supposed to show up without that, because it might be bad karma.
Yes, exactly. But I'm going to think about, beyond just what I'm doing there, taking a shot and saying their names. I'm going to think about what you said about this idea of like, what did they love doing? Because today's the day where we do what they love to do. And so I'm going to really honor that through maybe, the music Travis liked to listen to, or, the workout he would have done that morning, whatever it be. I'm not going to take it as a way to break my body down that day, because like you said, there's 364 other days in the year that I look to live a life worthy of his sacrifice. And so that's going to be the day where I just celebrate him. And I thank you for, bringing that to me and putting that in front of my face. So, Marcus and Melanie, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Resilient Life podcast. I truly appreciate you being our guest, and I'm looking forward to everybody hearing this conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.